When people marched to protest the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and other black people killed by police, signs are spotted in the crowd, proclaiming Black Lives Matter, no justice, no peace, and sometimes signs that say, defund the police. It's a call that gained momentum in the national discourse after a veto-proof majority of the Minneapolis City Council pledged to defund the police. That might be a new concept to some, but has been the focal point to many activists for years. Ariana Nason is part of the community collective known as MPD 150 in Minneapolis. Nason says defunding the police is taking money out of police departments and making communities safer by rethinking how those public funds are spent.
Or the point of that is to have that money go back into our communities. We have an unbelievably inflated police budget. Most major cities do, and we have severely underfunded schools. We have major housing crisis.
MPD 150 eventually wants to see the Minneapolis Police Department completely go away, replaced by a new system with crisis-trained professionals. But Nason says the call to defund the police can take various forms and can look different in any given community. In Columbus, Mia Santiago's group, Columbus Freedom Coalition, has multiple prongs for changing communities, which includes abolishing prisons and defunding the police.
I mean, the more funding they have, the more militarized they become, the more weapons they buy, the more cops they hire, despite the fact that it shows that having more cops is not helpful to communities. So defunding means decreasing their size and decreasing their reach.
Columbus City Council member Shayla Favor says what Minneapolis leaders are moving toward is the decision for that city, but says she wants Columbus to consider other options.
What I am calling for is an openness to put things on the table that we thought were not even possible 2 to 3 weeks ago. I think everything is possible at this point. I just don't know what that looks like. I'm open to having those hard conversations with our police as well as with our residents to figure out what that looks like.
Republican state leaders have used much stronger language in shutting down any notion of defunding the police, including Governor Mike DeWine, who called the idea absurd.
They protect our lives, and if something happens, we want to be able to call the police. So doesn't mean we don't make changes. Doesn't mean we don't do reforms. Doesn't mean we constantly need to work on this. There are real problems out there, and these are things that we need to work on.
This can be where the tension lies between community advocates like the Columbus Freedom Coalition, which wants to defund the police, and government officials who want to reform the police. Republican Representative Phil Plummer, a former Montgomery County sheriff, rolled out a 15-point plan to reform the law enforcement system. He says reforms need to be made to protect good officers by getting rid of the bad ones.
It's all of our voices. We have to come together as a community and fix this problem. And, any chatter of defunding police departments is just nonsense. We're not even going down that path. We're going to support our officers. We're going to hopefully properly fund them and train them properly. We need good police officers.
Plummer's plan includes creating more checks and balances in the disciplinary process, mandatory psychological testing, developing a statewide disciplinary database, and possible pay increases. Plummer says police should be properly paid so they're not overworked with multiple jobs. But community activists say reform doesn't work, and that abolition is what will stop police violence. Nason in Minneapolis says one of the biggest misconceptions about defunding the police is that it's not something that would happen immediately. As Santiago in Columbus explains, it would be about rebuilding a new system, brick by brick. Santiago also says they want to push back against the notion that it would make communities more dangerous.
They would be replaced by actually helpful resources like community outreach and crisis-trained intervention people and housing and healthcare, honestly, because it's kind of an overarching thing because without a lot of the material conditions that make life so hard for people, we won't need the police. A lot of the issues that police are called for are issues of survival. And if we provided survival to every person in the country, as many other countries do, I don't think we'd be leaning so heavily on the police.
The city of Columbus plans to spend $359 million on its police department this year. A budget forecast from Cleveland's mayor showed the city spending $218 million for police in 2020. And in Cincinnati, the city's police budget for the current fiscal year is $151 million. Andy Chow, State House News Bureau.